So cool. And you pronouncing that last name is Castelly, right?
Castelly.
Castelly. All right. So we can get started whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'm good now.
Cool. What's up, y'all? My name is Corey. Stay trapping. This is Trap Talks, where we discuss the intersection of culture and tech. And I got my guy here, Waze Castelli. He is the global
Ah,
product
now run it
marketing
back, run it back, run it back.
running back.
Yeah, Wadnes.
Wadnes. Oh no. Okay. Okay. Wadnes Castelli. Got it. All right. Castelli. All right, what's up, world? My name is Corey. Stay trapping. This is Trap Talks, where we discuss the intersection of culture and tech. And today we have Wadnes Castelli,
Yes,
who
sir.
he's the global product marketing solutions lead, or I guess you can say, at TikTok. And he also sits on the board of the All Stars Project Inc. But yeah, man, thanks for joining us. I know I did a little short intro. Anything else you want to expound upon or tell people what you're working on?
Yeah, man. Appreciate the intro. Definitely appreciate you having me here. Again, Wadnes Castelli. And I recently left TikTok not too long ago, back in February. So I'm no longer at TikTok, but can definitely talk about my experience being on like the business to business marketing team and what I'm up to now. So definitely appreciate you having me.
Yeah, yeah. Like I misread your LinkedIn. I'm like, oh, okay. I thought you thought you was still there. Um, yeah. I want to ask you. So how was it working at TikTok? And I'm not sure whenever because the government, U.S. government is going back and forth about shutting down TikTok. I think you was there when Microsoft was about to buy it, but then they um stopped trying to buy it because they couldn't own the algorithms. China was like, no, we're going to keep them here in China. What was it like, working at, one of the most popular apps, but then also seeing like, the government kind of coming down on it?
Yeah, I was at TikTok from 2022 to 2024. So technically about 2 years. And TikTok was a great experience for me. I was able to make a career pivot from working in like sales support to product marketing. So I definitely do appreciate that everyone that supported me along that journey. TikTok was one of those companies that it was interesting because prior to the pandemic, I didn't know much about TikTok. All I knew TikTok was about for those like dance challenges and things that went viral. So when the opportunity came for me to actually seek employment at TikTok, I was like, oh wow, okay. I wasn't pretty much a major fan of it, so I didn't really like care that deeply about it because I wasn't active on TikTok at the time. To me, it was just a job, right? That's pretty much how I kind of approached it. It wasn't until that I got inside of TikTok and I was like, oh wow, okay. I can see why people are like such amazed by TikTok and all the crazy things and amazing things you can do with it. So overall, I can definitely say that I had a pleasant experience. It was a great experience for me. In terms of like everything that's happening in the news right now with TikTok, again, I'm no privacy expert or anyone that's in that space, but I can definitely say that it's a uphill battle. It's a challenge. Of course, having worked there, I know there's a lot of smart and talented people that's there that are doing amazing and great work. It's unfortunate that the media has definitely ran with a narrative that TikTok is stealing our data, they're in cahoots with, China's government and all that type of stuff when really it's not the case at all. So all I can say is that I hope that the team can do what they can to really shift the narrative. I know brand safety is definitely an important thing for the company and of course for everyone who uses TikTok. So I hope that hopefully something comes to the point where we can resolve all this because TikTok is a great app. There's definitely a lot of great opportunities that comes from it. Of course, with any tool, with any resources, a lot of things can be used for nefarious reasons if
Right.
you give it the opportunity to do so. So I still think that there's a lot of opportunities for growth. So I'm saying a lot here, but pretty much what I'm saying is that overall, I think that TikTok is definitely doing more good than any potential bad that the government makes it seems to appear. And I'm hopeful that, things will work out in the end for everyone that supports TikTok and loves TikTok.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, when I look at it, to me, it's like if China wasn't pushing to get Taiwan, which they were promised like a long time ago, like 40, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, what have you. I think this is what we're seeing is like the residue of that, right? Where I think it's more of like a geopolitics at play versus like um the data collection piece. Because if we're being honest, I mean, Facebook knows a lot of our habits, right? So it's
Hmm.
like, but Facebook is an American company, so it's okay, right? Um, so it's real interesting to see how this is going to play out because I believe did Biden signed that executive order saying that they have to sell within a year of shutdown,
Hmm.
which I honestly find interesting because it's like the voter base that he's trying to go after, a lot of them use TikTok and they're in that younger age group,
Yeah.
right? Who just became eligible, what the Zennials who just became eligible to vote. So, it's pretty it's coming out being a pretty interesting year. So but yeah, I think it's like all geopolitical that we're dealing with versus consumer protection. Yeah, so I see you wanna keep it tight lit there. Totally get it. So you mentioned that you transitioned from sales into product marketing. Like how did you make that transition?
I made that transition by just being someone that was determined and knew what I wanted. It was at the time, maybe 2018, where I learned about product marketing by going to a networking event and I met an executive that I was talking to and I described to her what my ideal role was for my career, long term, in a sense. And she described to me, and she said this to me verbatim. She was like, "It sounds like you're talking about strategic marketing slash product marketing." At the time, I didn't know what product marketing was. So when I ran home later that night, I did my research and I identified what product marketing was. And pretty much it's like the ideal marketing role within tech companies and sits at the intersection of product, marketing, and sales. Being the voice of the market while also influencing the product roadmap, right? So being the person, the linchpin in the middle of the two. And once I realized that was the position, and I thought back to what I was doing in my career up to that point, I really thought to myself, like, yo, this would be the dope role for me to be in. So since then, I've been on a journey to pivot into product marketing. I had my first interview, I think later that year, for an associate product marketing manager position. And despite not getting the role, I was able to get great feedback from the hiring manager, which I always appreciated. And to this day, I definitely appreciate him from like taking the time out to give me that detailed feedback. And I was pretty much just adamant on making that transition, whether it's listening to podcasts, buying books, reaching out to career coaches, anything that I can do to upskill myself and gain the knowledge and experience I needed to make that transition happen. And I was fortunate enough to make that happen with my role at TikTok. And again, the journey was definitely difficult from the process of it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, but not knowing when that day would happen, but staying ready so I don't have to get ready. And overall, I think for me, the reason why I was so passionate about making that transition is because I saw myself leveraging a lot of key learnings from product marketing that I can take away as I pursue my entrepreneurial endeavors. I think product marketing is a great marketing role to be in because when you think of entrepreneurship, you're building a product, but you're also got to be mindful of what pain points, what challenges exist in the marketplace, and what solution or benefit can your product provide that audience. And I feel as though if I'm able to like really understand that in my role in product marketing, I can translate those skill sets into entrepreneurship.
Got you, got you. So what exactly is product marketing and how is it different from marketing? What is actually product marketing? What does it encompass?
Yeah, I'd say that when you think of marketing in layman's term, you're thinking of, okay, how am I marketing a product? How am I getting more eyeballs, more attention on this, right? Because at the end of the day, marketing is of service to sales, right? I'm marketing a product to the point that you, the consumer, will realize, hey, I need this product, and therefore I'm going to buy this product, aka driving a sale.
Right.
What product marketing differs is that it's more so like specific and more detailed to the point of, okay, this particular product, right? What solutions, what benefit, what value does it offer a particular audience? Who is this audience? What pain points do they have? Who are they? What do they like? What do they do not like? Right? And how can I connect the two together? So I can say that marketing or brand marketing can be more so very broad and more so focused on the company as a whole. Whereas product marketing, you're thinking of specific products, right? And what does that product offer that particular audience? An example I love to give people a lot is when you go grocery shopping and you're pushing a cart, right? And let's say you're in a certain aisle, right? Product marketing is basically getting products off the shelf, and product management is more so putting products on the shelf, right? So if I'm a product manager, I'm putting all these different cereal brands on the shelf, right? It could be your Kellogg's, your Cheerios, all these different types of cereal brands, right? But as a product marketer, right, I'm thinking about, okay, how does this one cereal differ from this other cereal, right? Whether it's the packaging, the pricing, the way I talk about the benefits, the way I position things. I'm really thinking about it from like an arts and science standpoint. Because at the end of the day, you could buy a name brand cereal brand, you could buy a generic. It's the same thing, but the way it's packaged and presented says a lot. And if it connects with you, it connects with you. And as a result, you buy it.
Right, right. Yeah, I love the way you broke it down. You said it's an art and a science. What's the art piece of product marketing and what's the science piece of it?
I'd say the science is more so the research aspect of it. You know, you doing your due diligence, making sure I know who my audience is. I know exactly their demographic, their psychographics, what they like, what they don't like, doing surveys, all that market research, right? Is more so the science, right? Because it's foundational, right? You need to do that. And the art is all about how you communicate once you know who they are, the marketing campaigns, the slogans, the copywriting, all the fun things that we tend to see. That's the art form of it. Because again, you can go as creative as you want to go, as long as you're rooted in that foundation, which is the research, which is the science.
Yeah. So which brands or which companies do you think do product marketing well? Um, that you see like, wow, I like where it was going with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think in general, we always like to say that Apple does a great job when it comes to product marketing, because think of like every year we have the same, WWDC, Worldwide Developer Conference, where Apple basically showcase all of its latest products for the year, right? And some of these products are super in the weeds, like super technical, all this extra stuff, but each year they find a way to present it in a way that the masses can understand and want to buy it, right? So it can be the most simplest thing, like a iOS update. And this iOS updates talks about improving, removing bugs, or doing this or doing that in the third. But how does that really benefit me, the end user? Oh, because it makes my iPhone move faster. Okay, that's a benefit, right? So I'd say that Apple does an amazing job at that. It all started with Steve Jobs. He's an amazing product marketer, a communicator, a storyteller. I would also say, like, for example, I love what I've been seeing from Google recently with their Google Pixel phone, right? Obviously, we all know that we all believe that Apple has a you know, strong grip on the smartphone industry. However, Google has been doing their thing as it relates to like promoting Google Pixel, some of the partnerships and promotions we've seen. I think I've seen like a couple of like, ads with the NBA, and it's super awesome and super cool. So I definitely do think that finding ways to take like a physical or hardware product like a cell phone and being able to market it to the masses and finding cool ways to do it I think that's something that I've always been attracted to. And I think that's where the fun and creativity comes into as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think what you kind of pointed out, without saying, Apple's really good at positioning certain feature updates, right? And relating them to how it benefits the person, right? So if you got a phone with more memory, then you could take more videos and more pictures. I'm actually running out of memory on my phone, so I gotta
Mhm.
put it in the cloud. Is there, so with that said too, is there a brand that you, if you were doing product marketing for them or whatever, right? What is that brand you're like, hey, I would do it this way instead of the way they're currently doing it?
It's a good question. I mean, if I was like a consultant and I had to advise a brand on a way they can better position their product,
And you could pick any brand too.
yeah. I mean, I would say this because I've seen this recently. Skechers, right? So Skechers, they're looking to get into the basketball business, and they currently have Joel Embiid and Julius Randle as partners. And I've seen a couple like ads with those two, and I'm saying to myself, ain't nobody checking for Skechers for basketball sneakers, right?
Yeah.
They're not, right?
Yeah.
When I think of Skechers, I don't think of basketball, right? So I would think that Skechers need to do more of an effort in repositioning their brand. So when people think of Skechers, they're not thinking of affordable footwear for people or shoes for elderly, right? Orthopedic type sneakers, right?
Yeah.
That type of stuff. So I would definitely say like Skechers can definitely do a better job with their positioning and make it make sense as relates to why they're getting into the basketball
Yeah.
space. Because of course they're seeing like the success that that New Balance is having with basketball and all these other like sneaker lines getting into the basketball industry. But
Right.
Skechers, I think they can definitely do some more work on that.
Mm. Yeah, and I was, this is like not a slight against Randall, but I don't he's not talked about a lot
He
as
can't
well.
sell. He can't sell. I don't think anyone, well, I can't speak for everyone, but I don't think that Julius Randle has a strong grasp of a particular market to make people want to actually go buy sneakers.
Yeah.
And Joel Embiid, personally, I think he's hurting his brand with everything he's doing right now, you know, in these
Mm.
NBA playoffs. So I think his brand is definitely taking a dive, but we'll see if he can recover.
What you mean he's hurting his brand? Do you mean because he's not playing well or certain decisions that he's been making as far as aligning with certain brands?
I think it's more so on court activity. I think like he is definitely becoming more of a villain than a hero when it comes to basketball. What I mean by villain, I mean just the type of basketball player that people start not to like anymore. Whether it's because of the flagrant fouls or like just him like not doing things accordingly.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely hurting his stock because again, people were fond of Embiid, trust the process, fun going big guy, very dominant. Now it's like he's a crybaby. He's this, he's that. Like, he's never gonna win a ring. Like but he might as well just like feel comfortable where he's at because he's not going anywhere with the 76ers. So yeah, it's hurting his brand because what he does on the court impacts what he does off the court. So if he's not doing well on
Hmm.
the court, how do you expect him to sell sneakers?
Hmm. Question: do you think him crying? I think it was last year or the year before they lost to something in the playoffs, and he was basically, you can visibly see him crying. Do you think that hurt his brand? People seeing him cry like that all out in the open?
I mean, you always got people, especially like, Twitter basketball, that's going to make memes and make jokes. But for him to be emotional, it kind of showcases that he's really passionate about his profession. He wants to be the best that he can be, and he actually cares. So for him to be passionate and cry, show emotion, that just tells me that he really cares about this. And it's just not a paycheck for him.
Mm. So you see that as a good thing. You don't think that actually hurt his brand?
Nah, definitely not. I don't think that hurts his brand. I think when it comes to having somebody endorse your product, you always want someone to be super authentic, right? So if I'm Skechers or if I'm some other sneaker brand and I'm signing Joel Embiid or any athlete as like a endorser of my product or influencer, I want to make sure that this person is known for being passionate and standing on 10 toes when it comes to anything that person believes in.
Right, right. And I just think about Skechers, man. I mean, they were like the saying now, people say like, what are those? I remember like you didn't you won't nobody was really checking for Skechers.
Hmm.
It's really interesting to see them become like more fashionable. Like it's I guess they've been doing uh 15 over 20 years. Like when I'm just trying to think the last time I thought of Skechers, they was like, you didn't buy those. Like you bought them because you couldn't buy Jordans or Dunks or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, give me 1 second. Ugh. Cool. So yeah, so you originally are you originally from New York, New Jersey? Did you grow up in you grew up there?
Yep. Born and raised in New Jersey.
Oh, dope, dope. So what was it like, growing up in Jersey, and do you like the changes that you see that are happening in Jersey now?
Yeah. Growing up in Jersey was definitely a great experience for me. Being close to New York City as a major market, being able to have a childhood, public school all my life, playing sports, basketball, football, track and field, just having an active lifestyle. And I think for me, I've always gravitated towards sports. I gravitated towards business because of my father. Back in the day, before technology became what it is, we used to write physical checks. So I remember he taught me how to actually write a check, right? And the fact that he would always make me write a check for him, I started to, ask questions more about business and stuff like that. So I naturally gravitated towards that line when I got older, decided to study marketing mainly because there was a popular show that came out around that time. It was like called The Game. It was on
Mm,
BT.
yeah, I remember
I
that.
think before it used to be on UPN 9. So it's really about like, sports, the lives of, sports professionals, mainly football players, and the ups and downs of their personal lives. And I remember watching a particular episode where they were doing like a marketing campaign with Nike, and I was trying out for the football team at that time, and that just stuck in my head about like, oh, sports marketing, sports marketing. And I said to myself, oh, I think sports marketing is pretty cool. And I've always wanted to work for Nike. That's something I always aspired to. And that naturally made me want to go on Nike's website, look at their career pages, and read the job descriptions of marketing professionals, business professionals. So by the time I went to college, I already knew that I wanted to study business and go into marketing. And that just opened up a whole, rabbit hole of me learning things and wanting to be interested in certain elements of marketing and whatnot. So I think growing up in New Jersey definitely made me very mindful of all of the different opportunities that I had exposure to and helped me zero in on what I wanted to do with my career for the long term.
Dope, dope. Um, I guess what was like some early job that you had that you started to kind of like say, okay, I'm gonna put my interest in sports marketing into or product marketing into where you were there like or were there just jobs you were taking just so you can
Yeah.
get paid?
My first marketing internship was with the Brooklyn Nets and Barclays Center.
Mm,
And that was a amazing opportunity. The way that I even got that internship was just straight up God, to be honest. Like the way it worked out. I
yeah.
didn't apply to any applications. It was literally networking.
Mm.
Long story short, went to a event in the city, skipped class. The VP of marketing for the Brooklyn Nets and Barclays Center was talking to students. He gave a speech, had questions, Q&A at the end. I raised my hand. I raised my hand. He never chose me. Once he finished, he went to the elevator bank to leave. A friend of mine at the time was like, hey, if you really want him to answer your question, he's right there at the elevator bank. You should try asking him before he leaves. At the time, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that. I'll just reach out to him on LinkedIn. But then I said to myself, I had nothing to lose. I came all the way here from New Jersey. I might as well go talk to him. So, mind you, I made a scene somewhat because I'm in like this auditorium. I'm in the middle. So I'm saying, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, right? As the next speaker is getting ready to talk, I walked out and I run to the elevator bank. And I basically was like, give my little elevator pitch. You know, hey Randy, my name is Wadnes. I'm a junior at Rutgers University. I'm currently studying marketing. Da 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 da. Asked him a series of questions to the point that he gave me his business card and he told me to follow up with him with my resume. So ran back to the dorm, sent him an email with my resume. He said we'll be in touch. A couple days later, HR reached out to me, did a phone screening interview, and I got the partner marketing internship at the Brooklyn Nets and Barclays Center for the following semester.
Wow.
So that was my first marketing internship, and it exposed me a lot to what it's like working in sports. And I learned a lot, and I realized that I don't necessarily think that I wanted to stay in sports because it's a little bit more business focused and more professional than I thought it would be. To
Yeah.
the point that it was frowned upon for me not wearing a suit to a basketball game.
Mm.
Yeah. Because when you're working a game, you have to wear a suit, right? Because you're not a fan, you're not a spectator, you're actually working, right? Because I was basically supporting the ticket sales team,
Yeah.
right? So of course you want to look the part. And I just learned so much about sports by working there for that year. That was also the same season that Steph Curry won his first MVP.
Oh, okay.
Just to give you a reference, it was back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
like twenty
Yeah.
thirteen, 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it gave me a lot of exposure to the point that I said to myself, okay, maybe not sports marketing. So let me look into general digital marketing. And from regular digital marketing, I dived into product marketing, and that's where we are right now.
Dope. Dope. So, uh, fan question: did you ever meet Jay-Z?
Did I ever meet Jay-Z?
Yeah, while you
I
was
haven't. I haven't.
well, he was a part owner at that time, right?
I don't know if he was. I think he might have sold his minority shares. I'm not sure, but I haven't met Jay-Z in person yet.
Yeah. Um, what and you might have mentioned it, so sorry for making you repeat yourself, but what was it about the sports marketing you didn't like? Was it the wearing having to wear the suit at the arena? Was it the not being able to be creative in that role? Like what was it specifically? He's like, I want to go more in the digital marketing piece.
Yeah, I think it was more so just a lack of opportunity because I was pigeonholing myself into sports.
Mm,
I enjoy sports. I watch it leisurely during my free time, but to make my job centered around it, I don't know. I'm a fan of the idea of knowing a little bit about a lot instead of knowing a lot about a little. And I think for me to be more dangerous in my career, it would be my best interest to basically be well-rounded before specializing and zero in on something.
yeah, smart. I like that. So I know why it's important because I'm like the same way. I like to be, multidiscipline, right? And you put them all together. But why is that important to have an understanding of these different areas versus saying, okay, in the beginning, saying, you know what, I want to double down in one particular area.
I think for professionals of all backgrounds, but specifically professionals of color, you want to be mindful of like where your value lies. Do you want to be someone that can be easily replaced? or do you want to be someone that's very difficult to find because of the value you offer, right? There could be someone who had the same background as me, went to a 4-year institution, got a Bachelor of Science in marketing, boom. You can find a lot of people like that. But can you find someone that, I don't know, has a 4-year degree in marketing, has a concentration in entrepreneurship, also had a minor in video production, and also had several internships across different aspects of media entertainment, and also has a keen interest and background in product marketing as well. Like being more niche, right? 'Cause I think that's what makes you unique because you have a particular set of experience and value that you can provide that is very hard to replicate, which is why I'm a firm believer to say, like, if there's something you really know, master it and make sure everyone knows you know that. Because the more people that you know what you know, the better it is for you to basically command higher salaries, income, all that type of stuff, because you have a knowledge that so few has. And that's what
Mm,
makes you dangerous.
right. Yeah. So how do you feel about how you feel about the way that people should use ChatGPT to be able to do what you're saying, right? To be able to say, okay, I know all these different things. How can they leverage ChatGPT to actually help them hit those higher alphas that they want, right? Better, get directly into their career, make more income and things of that sort.
There's so many different prompts you can use for ChatGPT. Most people tend to use ChatGPT for basic stuff, whether it's maybe copywriting or answering random questions, right? But I think using ChatGPT as like a consultant, a coach, an advisor is very smart, in my opinion. So, for example, let's say you were able to create a prompt and you asked ChatGPT to serve as your advisor, and you said, "Hey, ChatGPT, here's a overview of where I am in my life right now. What would you recommend is the best thing I can do in the next 6 months to showcase my expertise in these particular fields?"
Mm,
ChatGPT will then provide an output and say, like, "Hey, if you want to be considered a expert in marketing, in AI, in whatever industry you choose, here are the top things I'd recommend you to do in the next 6 months to position yourself as an expert in this industry." And all you got to do is do it, right? Because I think being able to be known for something is super important. And using ChatGPT as your personal assistant, your personal coach, advisor can give you information that people tend to spend a lot of money just to get an expert to tell you the same thing that ChatGPT could have told you had you asked the right questions in terms of a prompt. So
right.
I would definitely say doing things like that, like, hey, what areas of your life do you want to get better in? And trying to use ChatGPT as a third party person that can just evaluate the facts for what they are. I think that's
Mm,
a cool way that I've considered using ChatGPT when it comes to goal setting. For example, I'm a big fan of this concept called a 12-week year, which basically says that instead of looking at your year as 12 months, look at your year as 12 weeks, aka 3 months. So every 3 month, every quarter is a year within itself. So if you have a goal of saying, like, hey, I want to position myself as an expert in product marketing, here's a prompt, ChatGPT. What can I do for the next 12 weeks to position myself as an expert in product marketing? ChatGPT will then give you a list of things you can do. And what you have to do is pretty much do that week over week. So by the 12th week, you can confidently say, I was able to do all these things. And now within my industry, within my sphere of influence, I am seen as a product marketing expert because I'm constantly putting out content. I'm constantly answering questions. I'm constantly doing things to make myself appear knowledgeable, competent, and an expert within the space. So that's a way that I've used ChatGPT to achieve some of my personal goals as relates to where I want to be in my career.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. I can't remember where I heard the 12-week year from. Where'd you get that from?
Man, I'm always listening to different podcasts and books and whatnot. But there's a YouTube account that I like to follow, and basically they provide book summaries of a lot of books focused on personal development. So I was watching one of those videos and I came across the 12-week year because the name is very shocking when you hear that, the 12-week year. Okay,
Yeah.
I want to learn more about that. So I watched the video and basically it's just a video recapping the book, core summaries. And I listened to the video and I said to myself, oh, I love the concept. I would love to do this because, again, every year it's the same thing. New year, new me. What are your New Year's resolution? But at the end of the day, when you look back on your year, what did you really accomplish?
Right.
Right? Like, did you lead your life or did you let your life happen to you? Right? And I
Mm,
said to myself, I don't want to wake up one day and it's December 31st and I'm asking myself, or December 30th. I don't even know how many days are in December, but
31, but I
31.
guess.
Okay, cool. I don't want it to be like the end of December. I'm asking myself, like, what did I really accomplish this year? Like, was this year strategic, or did I let this year fly by and not really do anything to better my life? Right. But if I can say confidently, hey, each quarter I achieved one specific thing that I was able to compound quarter over quarter, and now my life is here versus here, I can confidently say, like, yeah, I made the most of my year.
Mm. So every 3 months, you actually keep a tally of like, okay, am I reaching towards my goal?
Exactly. Whether it's personal or professional, just saying to yourself, like, hey, it's 90 days, right? How am I bettering myself? Because literally, it doesn't take long to make something happen for yourself,
Yeah,
right? Whether it's something as, hey, I want to lose weight, I want to gain weight, I want to learn a new skill, I want to build better relationship with people in my lives. Like 3 months is a good amount of time to make significant progress in a particular area of your life.
yeah.
So I feel like if you're really mindful and intentional about it, using a 12-week concept can definitely help you. So I would definitely recommend people to look into that because it's probably one of the best goal setting frameworks out there.
Mm. So do you also use this framework in like your personal life, like saying like, okay, I've been friends with this person, or we've been in a serious relationship. I'm gonna look at it every 3 months. Oh, this is not going the way I want it to. It's time to cut it. Like, do you use this framework for your personal relationships as well?
Not to that extent. I more so think about it from the standpoint of how am I progressing this relationship in the areas that I want it to be progressed in. So, for example, let's say the first quarter of this year, Q1, right? What is the main priority for me in this relationship, right? What is that one thing or top three things I would love for us to do, right? And once that's out the gate, Q2, what's the next three things, right? So more so from a standpoint of just like not trying to do a lot, but being intentional about the little that I do want to focus on.
Mm,
Could be as simple as, okay, I realize that I don't spend a lot of time with my extended family members. How about for Q1, every Sunday at 6 o'clock, I'm always going to check in and reach out to this person. So I know that week over week, I'm making a significant effort to reach out and give this person a call from 6 to 7 o'clock every Sunday just to check in. How was your week? How's things are going? Okay, cool. I'll check in with you next week, type of thing.
got it. Got it. Yeah. I actually kind of came up with something similar because my family is in North Carolina, so I'm like, all right, I need to go back home once a quarter, right, to go see my parents because they're getting older, right? So, um, I definitely like how you like take this because I don't see a lot of people talking about how they take things or these strategies for their career, but they don't apply them to their personal life. Because a lot of it is not the same, but very similar, right? Where you're like trying to move forward, um, and you don't want to progress in your career and make more money when you don't have people that you love for to share it with, right? So
Exactly.
yeah. Um, So when we were talking previously, I think we talked about mentorship circles. Like, why are mentorship circles important?
I think mentorship circles are important because it gives you perspective that you lack. Oftentimes, we tend to believe based off of what we see, based off what we think, but to be able to have access to someone and learn from them, it definitely changes your perspective on things because now you have a reference point. Now you can say like, hey, I actually know someone that experienced this, that this happened to, and this is what I learned from that person. And I'm a firm believer that the wisest person is the person that can learn from other people's mistake and do differently. So
Right.
I have a mentor that can say, it's not good to burn bridges, and here's why. So when my opportunity comes, I'm going to be mindful, oh, I'm not going to burn bridges because this is what happened to my mentor. So I wouldn't want that to happen to me. So I'm going to be mindful and do things differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Now with that example though, I've been in life where there's certain bridges that I needed to burn. Right. But I have another quote that I live by. You don't burn a bridge unless you can walk over it. And
Mm,
so
powerful.
you don't want to burn many bridges, but if you do burn a bridge, you better make sure you can walk over it. Right. With
Yeah.
the hand, they said the hand that you spit on may be the hand that you need coming back up. So
Mm.
you gotta be very careful with that. Which kind of leads me to another question. Do you think that it's more important to have a sponsor or a mentor?
I would love to say that it's important to have both, but to be fair and answer your question based off of the way you asked, I would definitely say that it's important to have a sponsor first, then a mentor. And here's why I say this. I think oftentimes we think that it's pretty easy to get a mentor. And for the most part, I can agree because whether it's an active or an inactive mentor, you can still get a mentor. And what I mean by inactive is that you don't necessarily have to have a relationship with that person, but if it's a person you admire and you have access to their books, their podcasts, or any resource where they're dropping gems, that person can mentor you. Whereas with a sponsor, there's no way you can get a sponsor without having connection with that person. Like a sponsor can only advocate for you based off of them having a relationship with you. So if I wanted to have a sponsor, I had to say to myself, okay, who are the major stakeholders when it comes to this area of my life, right? And how can I make sure that this person can have good things to say about me? I got to make sure that I'm doing good work by them, that I have conversations and relationship with them. So this person can naturally advocate for me because this person knows me. This person knows my character, my goals, my aspirations, and this person is a supporter of me. So it's in my best interest to make sure that I'm doing everything possible to make sure this person can speak well on my behalf. And I think that is more challenging to get a sponsor, hence why it's more of an onus to do your best to get one. Because once you get one, all you got to do is try to keep one.
Right. Yeah. So for the audience who aren't aware of what a sponsor is, I'll put it simply: it's a mentor that has the power to effectively put money in your pocket or help you find an angel investor or venture capitalist or get a promotion on your job, right? And they actually get a direct benefit from doing that. So it can be like a hiring manager or whatever. Um, right. So, but yeah, I always like getting people's perspective on that. Because I mean, mentor, in my viewpoint, having a mentor is fine, but in certain situations, you need a sponsor where I feel like it's money on the line because they are going to put their power in your favor, right? They're going to speak for you in those rooms that you can't. And then the same thing for a mentor too, but they don't necessarily a mentor doesn't necessarily benefit financially from you being successful. A sponsorship does. They need you to be successful for them to be successful.
Yeah, I would definitely tell people that definitely books out there I would definitely recommend to read. One by Carla Harris. She has two books that I've read. Expect to Win and Strategize to Win. And in those books, she talks about the different types of currencies Like when you work in corporate America, workplace environments, there's something called political currency, right?
Yep.
So someone to be able to, leverage the juice that they have in the workplace and say like, hey, Corey, that's my guy. Like he's definitely good people. Like definitely like look out for him. Like definitely that type of thing. Oh, okay. If you get the sign off from me, then you must be good people, right? And that's
Yeah.
me out of my way to offer some of my political currency to you. Therefore, if you do a bad job, you make me look bad,
Yeah.
right? My political currency goes down, which is why when someone does a favor for you like that, you got to make sure that you don't make that person look bad because they went out of a whim to do that for you.
So tell me about tell me about a time. This sounds like an interview question, right? Like a job interview question. But like tell us about a time you actually leverage someone else's political currency to push a project through that you were working on. Because I think this would be a good concrete example. I'll give you mine after you give me yours. Or I'll give you one after you give me yours.
To move a project forward.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where you had to like kind of talk to different people, get someone's approval, and they're like once they stamped it, everybody else was pretty much on board.
Yeah, I can say like that's pretty much the typical job that I have these days where I can work on a project, I can work on something, and I need to share with my manager or my skip level manager, and their whole MO is just poking holes. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Did you think of this? Did you think of that? Right? And the more holes that they create, I need to think of ways to basically answer their questions and resolve them because me not being able to resolve those questions makes me look a certain type of way, right? So once I do answer those questions and I get their approval and their thumbs up, I can pretty much take this project plan or document and share with other people. And they can say, like, oh, did such and such see it? And be like, yeah, this person did see it. Oh, if that person saw it, then you're good to go then. Right. So I
Right.
think it's more so just like in general being mindful of who's that final approver and being able to think the same way they do and ask yourself like, hey, if I'm sharing this with Corey, what are some of the things that Corey's going to say to me as far as like feedback and pushback? But if I can get on top of it, by the time I share this with Corey and I can answer all the questions he'll probably going to ask me, I made my job 10 times easier.
Right. Right. Um, yeah, so I'll give you an example. So I was working on the last company I was with, Aurora. We were working on I was actually working on an API project, and my engineering manager was like 100% behind it. My engineers are behind it, and so I do a meeting to enable engineers on different teams to start building out the internal API we was working on. And so this engineering manager from another team who I had never spoken to was like, yeah, we're on board for this. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I've never spoken to her before, right? And so I started thinking, like, why was she so on board with it? Well, she was close friends. What I later found out, she was close friends with my engineering manager for my product team. And so she had been evangelizing it um effectively, indoors in the engineering only meetings, right? And so basically, when I went in front of and started doing the enablement training for these different engineers and the EMs, they were already on board, right?
Mm.
And so that's when I was like, literally, I sat in my chair for like 30 minutes, like, what in the world? How did that happen? Because I had literally never spoken to her, right? And so like I said, my engineering manager yielded her political power towards my project. But it was also an issue they had been facing with, but no one on the product team had stepped into a position to kind of like push it through and stuff and evangelize it. But yeah, like it's the political power. It makes sure because like one of the other things I like to say too, and this is like decisions are made before you get into the meetings, right? So decisions are for the most part rarely made in the meetings.
Yeah.
They're more like they're more formal, right? It's more like, okay, we talked about this informally, so we got to do this formally. But like decisions are really made before you go to the meeting or after, because that's when people ask those real questions behind your back or to you directly, you know. So
Agreed. I definitely agree. So that's why I definitely do think that people need to be mindful of these types of situations and relationships and just do the best job that they can to forge relationships that are authentic, that can work in your favor. So just be smart about how you move.
yeah, yeah. Have you read gosh, what's the name of that? It's by Dale Carnegie. How to Win Friends and
Learn to
Influence People.
influence people.
Yeah.
Jinx, like nah. Yeah, I definitely read that book. It was a recommendation from a friend at the time, and it's definitely a great book. I would probably say the biggest takeaway from that book, or one particular lesson, is to, well, a few lessons. One, you want to do more listening than talking. That's one. Two, people love the sound of their own names, Corey, and try to repeat their names as often as you can,
Yeah.
Corey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd say those are the top two things. And also, there was another gem that he shared about basically like never outshine the master, so to speak. So like, let's say that your manager makes a mistake. Don't correct your manager in front of mixed company. So let's say, your manager is sharing his or her screen and says something. Don't say, actually, Corey, it's the third.
Yeah.
Don't say, you might as well not say nothing.
Yeah.
It's not a good look,
Yeah.
right? So it was a few tidbits like that that I learned. And I asked myself, okay, now that I read the book, how can I actually adopt this into my everyday lifestyle? Like how can I show up on this? And some of those things I was reminding myself, like, hey, I'm in a meeting, right? What's the purpose of this meeting? Do I need to do more talking or listening in this meeting? Right. And just like when it comes to everyday networking, you meet someone, how can you make sure you remember that person's name? Because oftentimes you can get away with saying, like, hey, bud, how's it going, my guy? And you never say that person's name. And the crazy thing is, I have relationships with people that I don't even know their names.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see you around. I say, my guy, what's going on? How you been, bro? You know? So it's a thing. It's a thing for sure. So I would definitely say that's one of the best books when it comes to communications and just overall networking, to be honest.
Yeah. And another book I like to, and this is in regards to networking. It's Go Giver. I think it's called Be a Go Giver.
Okay.
And it basically talks about, a go getter is someone who's more, not to say being a go getter is bad, but think of like someone who's more individualistic. It's more about, okay, what can I gain? What can I gain? And a go giver is basically the opposite, where they see themselves more as a part of an ecosystem. And instead of taking first, they give first. And I remember
Mm.
after reading that book, that book really changed my perspective on how do you build relationships like professionally, right? Like I would actually say that's kind of like my how to win friends and influence people. I think I leveraged that for more like working relationships, but the Go
Hmm.
Giver was more. That's I think how I became more masterful at networking and meeting people. I mean, how me and you met at the it was Invest Fest, right? Wasn't it? Was it Invest Fest? I think it was, or Afrotech, one of those conferences. Um, right, like talking less than the person you're talking to. And it's funny in sales to have the talk ratio, which talks about that, right? Like
Hmm.
you can literally look at reps, your top reps talk the least, right? So, um, yeah, man. What are some other books you think people should read too?
I think it's definitely important for people to have a strong understanding of their personal finances. So I would definitely say Rich Dad Poor Dad is a book I'd recommend because I feel like reading that book will give you a strong understanding of the basics of personal financing. Everything from like liabilities to assets, cash flow, you know, just so you understand that, when you earn your paycheck, what are you actually doing with it?
Yeah,
If you're just like, buying liabilities, then it's a never-ending rat race,
yeah,
right? So I would definitely say that. I'm also looking at my own personal library here. I have a lot of, I naturally gravitate towards personal development books. So I would definitely say other books that I've read, such as The Power of Now. I've
Hmm.
read that book.
I've heard of it. I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
Basically, the whole concept is it's spirituality, but it's more so about being focused on the present. Oftentimes we catch feelings because of the past. We have anxiety because of the future, but we don't do a great job at focusing on the here and now.
Mm,
And I think around COVID, a lot of people were struggling with that. Hey, will I ever see my family members again? Will I ever be outside again? Or the past, oh, I don't know if I'll ever see this person again. I kind of wish I didn't treat that person this way instead of just focusing on today. There's a reason why the present is called present because, it's a gift every day to wake up. Tomorrow's not promised. And I think the more that we can think of living every day as if tomorrow is not guaranteed, the better relationships we'll have with people in our lives. A book that I'm working on right now is actually focused on that concept similarly. Basically, the premise is that the average human life is 40,000 weeks. So, based off of you having 40,000 weeks, how are you leveraging your time?
mm,
And I think 40,000 weeks is equivalent to like about maybe 80 or 85 years of life. So, if you're only going to make it to 80 or 85, what are you doing right now?
yeah.
Right? So, books like that I definitely think about because it gives me like perspective on my life, the things I want to be known for. And one thing that I've always stood out to me, and I heard this on a podcast, is how when you look at a tombstone, not to get morbid or anything, but if you look at a tombstone, there's two dates: the date that person was born and the date that person passed away. But what's important is that hyphen in the middle, because that hyphen represents that person's life. And you got to ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? Do you want to be known for based off of your LinkedIn or your resume? Or do you want to be known for the person you was? Because if all that people remember you for is like, hey, he worked at this company, he worked at that company, he got a great performance review, yada, 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 you're like, damn, you didn't really make the most of your life.
Yeah.
Obviously, people want to be known for like how you made people feel, what opportunities you created for other people, the impact you made in society. I think those are the things that people really care about. So I would definitely say to everyone, of course, having a job, having a career, having shelter, and just having all the essentials, food, clothes, shelter is important, but also be mindful of what impact you want to have in the lives of your friends, your loved ones, in society. Because to my knowledge, you only get one life.
Yes.
So what are you doing to make the most of it?
Yeah. Yeah. You just kind of made me think of one of my when you talked about the graveyard, one of my friends, I actually interviewed him, um, did a live stream with him. He talked about he goes to the graveyard every 30 days. And I was like, why do you do that? And he said, we talk about, or you've heard, I'm sure you heard it, that the graveyard is the richest place on earth. And he was like, that's not true. Like, we're still living, people are living, people got new ideas. So how can the graveyard the be the richest place on earth? And he had this whole thing that he says and stuff. And I was like, wow, that's kind of, at the beginning, I was like, he's a little off. I thought he was a little off or whatever. Like he broke it down to me. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I had never heard of that perspective of going to a graveyard to like as a way to reignite your ambitions or to, also to get more in tune with who you are. So it was like a very different perspective. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I can understand that, but I also think there are more people that have passed than people that are currently living right now, right? So with that being said, the graveyard, in my opinion, still has a lot more creativity, innovation, and technology that was never acted upon. So based off of that logic, I would still say the graveyard, the cemetery is still the place where creativity lies that was never realized. So with that being said, I think to myself that unfortunately our time will run up at some point. And when you think about it, what exactly do you want to be remembered for? For me, I would love to be known as someone who made a difference to the point that someone can say, my life is better because I met this guy.
Mhm.
Point blank, period. Right. They can provide details on what that actually meant, but the mere fact that we came into contact in life, you are better off having met me than not meeting me. And I feel as though if I can make that an experience that everyone has when they're around me, I did my part.
I like that. I like that. That yeah, I like that. Um, when I think about what I want to be remembered for, if you knew me when I was younger, you didn't or wouldn't have expected me to be where I'm at today. And it's
Mm,
like so many people that I grew up with, a lot of people I grew up with, and I see them now, and they like, damn, you doing this? You know, um, because it's like it's like a life is like a game of spades, right? Or cards, right? It's not the hand that you dealt, it's how you play with it, right? Swap some cards out. Hey, you got a 49, drop that 49. I'm talking about tongue here. So but yeah, being remembered like the way that my life or my sentence started wasn't the way that
mhm.
it's ending, or not to say I'm ending, but you get the point I'm saying. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, how'd you get so wise, bro? You like an old soul.
I watch a lot of anime. I
So
watch a lot of anime.
anime makes you wise.
Anime makes me wise, man. Anime, everything from Naruto, Dragon Ball Z.
Oh yeah, Dragon Ball Z is my favorite.
I watch all of it, and for me, it's less about the action and fight scenes. It's more about the storyline and the plot,
Hmm.
right? Like, how can someone use words to make someone who was a villain turn into a hero? That's some deep stuff, right? Or being able to be someone who realized that I don't know everything, and I know, well, I actually got this from the Boondocks. There are three knowns: known
That's
knowns,
anime. Boondocks are
known
anime.
unknowns, and unknown unknowns, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And when I saw that episode, that always stood out to me. I was like, wow, I never heard it expressed that way. There are known knowns. So there are things that you know. There are known unknowns, things that you do not know, and unknown unknowns, which are things you don't know that you don't know that you know, right? Which is confusing. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's a concept that you do not know, and you're not even aware that you don't know it.
Hmm.
And I asked myself, okay, since that's the concept there, how can I find the knowledge? And for me, I'm really big on personal development, whether it's like you know, Jim Rohn or Ryan Leslie. He's very motivational to me. Just different motivational speakers, whether it's Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher,
Yeah, I like him. Yeah.
uh, just
Deion
different
Sanders. For
people.
me, Deion Sanders is one. Like I
Deion
like.
Sanders, just different people that always drop in gems that makes you think to yourself, like, man, like this perspective is so wise. And it definitely challenges me to think differently too about how can I get better, right? What does 1% better looks like for me, right? We all have the same hours in a day, but we all leverage it in different ways. So rather than give all my energy and my hours to one person, whether it's your employer or a certain relationship or whatever it might be, how can you use some of that for yourself to better what you got going on for yourself?
Mm,
So I always like to think things through from that perspective because at the end of the day, You can only control what you can control. And when things happen to you, you got to ask yourself, is it happening to me or is it happening for me? Right? Because we all could play the victim. But personally, I like to call my name, I like to call myself Victor because I like to win.
Is that your pickup line that you use for your girlfriend?
I don't know. If it works, it works.
No, I like
Try it
it.
out.
I like it though. No, like I'm laughing about it, but I like it. I'm like, yo, I like that mindset. Like,
Mhm. I actually got that from Lil Wayne.
oh, okay,
I think
okay.
he said something like in a rap line, he was like, "Call me Victor because all I do is win" or something like that.
Does it was that the car? I feel like that was the Carter 3.
It could have been, but it was something like that. It was like some clever line. I was like, "Oh, that's bars." So I was
Yeah,
like, "Let me take that."
yeah. I actually like that better than people saying I am him or I am her. Like, because like
Mhm.
everybody's saying that, like, you know.
Yeah, it's starting to get all dried out now.
Yeah. I don't heard too many scammers say, yeah, I am him. I'm like,
Mm.
yes, you are him.
Yeah.
So, so how selfish should you be to get to that 1% improvement every day?
I mean, you got to be selfish to some extent to accomplish something for yourself. I like to believe that the best time to be selfish, in my opinion, is in the morning because no one is asking of you. So whether it's going to the gym, whether it's reading a book, whether it's working on an online class you're taking, I think that if you told yourself, I want to get something accomplished before 7 a.m., I doubt anyone is bothering you prior to 7 a.m., right? So I think there was a story that I heard about from Toni Morrison before she wrote all of her books and poems and all that. She used to wake up dumb early in the morning, like maybe 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and she would make effort towards her poems, her writing, her books. And she did that consecutively for years, maybe over 5, maybe 10 years. She was doing that straight while also being a mother and taking care of her children. And it wasn't until compounding year over year over year, she made progress. And all that collection of poems and writing became what it is today, the books that she's known for. But she
Mm,
started at an older age. At the time, she might have been in her maybe in her 40s, probably, right? But it kind of shows you that if you're consistent with the little bit of time you have to do that one thing and you compound it over time, that one thing will result into something.
right.
But the hard part is that dedication, that focus.
Hmm.
So if you said to me, hey, I want to be somebody and I want to make this happen for me, are you dedicated enough to wake up at a certain time and say to yourself, from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, or even like from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock every morning for 6 months straight, I'm going to focus on this one task. Do that and tell me you're not going to be successful in whatever you decide to do because you will.
Yeah. Yeah, that I think of like Kobe, and he does an interview where he talked about how he would do his first workout like 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning. And so he would basically get an extra workout on every other NBA player, and you compound that over time, right?
Yep.
And there's also another interview where they asked him, were you surprised that you hit 81? He's like, no, I was supposed to do that. And it sounds cocky, but when you start hearing about his work ethic, you're like, oh yeah, he probably should have did 100.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's the same type of concept and methodology I like to think about. I'm not a professional athlete. I am a professional in the workplace, but the same concept goes. Like, think about it. You have a job, right? That job was designed for you to solve a challenge the company, the department, the team is facing, right? Based off the core competency of your role, right? What are you supposed to be an expert in? How can you be an expert in that space? The obvious answer is to know more than the average person, right?
Mhm.
How can you learn more from the average person? By studying. If you had to teach, what would you teach on that topic? And how can you identify the core questions someone would have questions on and answer those questions yourself? So I think that there's a lot of things that we can take from professional athletes and apply it to the workplace. Because when people want to get promoted, make more money, there's only one way that's happening, by you adding more value. It's the only way. So if I want to get a better job, make more money, I need to provide more value. And the only way you provide more value is by showcasing that you're nice in whatever particular area you're supposed to be nice in,
Right.
right? So if the opportunity comes and you raise your hand to do a keynote, or you created some amazing project that added value to the organization, that's a you thing. So you got to just keep doing that and be strategic in how you do so. So pretty much what I'm trying to say is that that Mamba mentality, you can still apply that in whatever profession you're in. Just aim to be the best that you can possibly be and watch film. What does watching film means? After your 9 to 5, are you going home to recap how your day went? Are you asking yourself how your day could have went better? The meetings you had, could you have answered any questions better? Could you do anything now to prepare for the next working day in advance? That's watching film. And one thing I realized is that what got us here isn't going to get us there. So if you just landed a new job, or you feel as though like you're pretty much stagnant in your career, just know that what you did in the past got you to where you are now. But to go to where you want to go, you can't maintain that same level of work ethic. Your work ethic has to change, because with every new position, more expectation is going to be asked of you. So that's the way that I'm looking at things. I'm not a VP. I'm not a director. I'm not a president. But what are the challenges of people in those positions? And how can I think about that now in my current position? How can I see the forest for the trees instead of just the trees? When you're junior in your career, you just tend to look at things from a very micro perspective.
Right.
But the more senior you become, you have to be more macro and think about all the different players in the ecosystem that impacts whether you get the result and outcome that you want or not. And I think that's what separates the junior folks from the more advanced and senior folks. That perspective right there.
Yeah. And to add to that too, you mentioned this about being like really good at communicating. Um, being that's also what I've noticed too, because like I've been around leaders and they don't really know much about what they're managing me on, but they're like masterful at communicating. Um, but they're also the ones making these key decisions, right? And so that's where, where you can easily add value, right? Like leadership, oftentimes they're not equipped or have the ability to be up on the research. So they're not knee deep into the weeds of that particular subject matter or domain. And if you can tell them and basically help avoid their blind spots, um, like I've been in meetings where I had to tell my manager, like, no, you think about this. Well, I told him after the fact, but I'm like, no, you're thinking about this wrong. This is really what my research is telling me. And there's been times when they're like, oh, go work on this. And then 6 months later, they're telling me to work on what I told them that I warned them about, right? But yeah, I think that's like how you can be a really good value add to leadership. It's like in covering their blind spots because it's impossible for them to see everything. People are meeting out, like they're in so many meetings about meetings, like, and they're not doing, for lack of better words, they're not doing real work that you may be doing in a more, if you're in a junior role, they're not like putting the specs together. If you're a PM, they're not depending on if you're in sales, they may be working on closing deals, but they're not working on as many deals as you are if you're like a sales rep and they're like VP, right? So like I think that's a big thing, like covering their blind spots. Because then that makes it harder for you to get laid off because they're like, oh wow, this guy, like, nah, we need to keep this person. Like
Yeah,
uh yeah, so
I agree. I agree. One thing that I always tell myself and others is that you want to be mindful of how many points you're putting on the scoreboard, right?
Mm,
Because the more points you put on the scoreboard, the harder it is for people to not acknowledge your value, right? Oftentimes you have a job, but like, do you have a job for the sake of having a job, or you have a job because clearly you're offering some sort of value that's very apparent and clear? Like, hey, go to him if you need help with X. Go to her if you need help with Y. And you know, and they know that you know your stuff,
yeah.
right? But if it's more so like, hey, I'm just like happy to be here type vibes, you got to really like reevaluate things and make sure you can like be adamant that everyone knows what you're good at. Scratch that, what you're great at. No, my fault. What you're phenomenal at.
What will make you a victor?
Exactly. Out of victim.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so you just started your agency, right? So what inspires you to start your agency? And tell us what your agency is obviously dealing with product marketing. You help with product marketing strategy and stuff. But yes, tell us about what inspires you and what you're doing with your what you're doing.
Yeah, I built my own consultancy back a few years ago, mainly because I wanted to take all the skills that I've learned and apply it and add value and help people. Specifically, when COVID-19 happened and I saw a lot of people being fired and furloughed, and I asked myself, what's separating me from them? And I said to myself that if I'm able to take what I've learned in my career and be able to help people while also earning at the same time, I think that would be my best interest. So for me, it's really just being able to like take the things that I've learned and have fun with it while also helping people. Because there was a time where I had people reach out to me for support and I could only help them in theory. Hey, I have struggled with marketing. Can you help me? Yeah, so from a theoretical standpoint, here's what marketing is. But they don't need that. They want hands-on support, help. At the time, I didn't know how to translate what I did in my job to the average person, right? Whereas now, I definitely do. Whether it's they need help building a landing page or a website, they need help with their homepage messaging, their value proposition, creating an offer, right? Oftentimes, people have products, but they don't know the best way to communicate the value of their products to the right audience who wants to buy it. There's a mismatch. Having an Instagram doesn't mean you're good at marketing. People tend to have these preconceived notions that if I do X, Y is going to happen. I don't work like that, right? So for me, it was more so just like having fun with the idea of educating people on strategic marketing and what are the marketing levers that you have to pull to get the specific outcome that you're looking for that can drive the needle for your business. Get more customers, get more sales, create a sort of funnel where it's on autopilot. And that's where I'm having fun with just being able to like teach what I'm learning because I know for myself that when I teach, that means that I'm learning. And when I'm learning, that means I know my shit.
Yeah, you
It's
can't
what
teach
helps me
what you don't know.
twofold, personal and professional.
Yeah. So what are your top 5, 10, whatever that number is, tips for like founders around product marketing and entrepreneurs too?
I would just say some of the top tips I would definitely recommend is like knowing your audience, knowing your customer base, knowing what pain points they have, what are the common challenges they have, and what are some of like the quick fix solutions they tend to go to, and where does your product or your service fall in relation to that. I would definitely also say having strong, compelling homepage messaging on your website. I say that because oftentimes you're not going to be available to pitch your business. So when someone wants to know more about your business, where do they go? They go to your website. But if your website isn't communicating the value proposition of your business, then you confuse them. And when you confuse people, you lose people.
You lose people.
Because confused people don't buy, they move on. So you need to be mindful of what you're putting out there on the internet, whether it's on your social media, on your website, all that messaging is important. And hopefully it's all consistent. Can't be saying one thing on your website and saying something else on your Instagram, then on your LinkedIn, then in an email. Has to be consistent. And the last thing I'll probably just say, oftentimes as business owners, business professionals, founders, we often think about getting more customers. I want to be successful, therefore I need more customers. But once you get a customer, what strategies have you set up to get that customer to be a repeat customer? Because if all the effort you take is to get that person to buy from you once they buy from you, what makes them want to buy from you again? So you need to think about your retention strategies, customer lifetime value. The best customer is a repeat customer. So you need to think about ways in which you get somebody to buy from you and continue buying from you. Whatever strategies, incentives, loyalty programs, you got to think about that because it's cheaper to keep a customer than get a new customer.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the top things I would recommend founders to think of.
Yeah. And to add to that, I would also add determine if you're selling a painkiller, right? So because if you're selling a painkiller and a painkiller is basically, obviously you take like an aspirin because you're in a lot of pain. Um, right. So how needed is your product? Is it nice to have or is it a must to have? Right. And it gets to knowing your customer because that directly dictates your growth margin on each product that's sold, how many customers you need to, to be profitable. Um, and it also obviously impacts how you promote your product, right? Because if it's a painkiller, then you don't necessarily have to spend. And I'm kind of speaking theoretically, or you can give your perspective, but like you don't have to. You probably don't have to spend as much marketing on it versus a product that's more like a nice to have, like you know. And I think a good example of that is like ice cream, right? No one's buying ice cream in in the winter. They're mainly buying ice cream in the summer because it's so hot and they're using it to cool down, right? So,
Yeah, I agree. I think of like SaaS, software as a service. That's a very popular model these days. And I would definitely say when you think about creating a business, what kind of foundation or business model should I have that I can get repeat customers? Because if it's something like a t-shirt business, I'll buy one t-shirt. I don't necessarily need to buy another t-shirt from you. But is it a type of product that I'm going to be buying from you monthly or yearly? Because it's something that I definitely need. An example would be something like, I don't know, let's say I'm getting some sort of Instacart, for example, right? I pick my groceries and they deliver it to me. That's something that I can see myself paying for consistently. Why? Because it alleviates a burden of me spending my time going grocery shopping when I can just identify my groceries on the app and someone can select them and then ship it to my house.
right.
And now I have 2 hours back in my day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the definition of a painkiller right there. So the more businesses you have like that, the more consistent you can foresee your revenue being because the odds of someone churning is very likely because that's a value that a lot of people would want.
Right. And Nipsey came up with this idea. He kind of like got it from another place, but basically, in order to get people to keep his t-shirts, I think Marathon does it now, but they put a QR code on the tag. And so whenever he does exclusive drops, if you don't have that QR code from that particular line of shirts, you don't get early access to the NFT or other products attached to that shirt. So there's also ways to make something that's more of a nice to have a must have, um,
Mm,
which is effectively what he did was create a community around the products they were selling, right? To where it was more like bigger than the shirt, like the marathon. So and then leveraging the emojis and all that, like I've done that as well. Like there's just a lot of stuff that you can do just thinking outside the box.
yeah.
And I ain't gonna lie, I like to steal ideas too. I like to look what other people are doing and figure out how can I incorporate an aspect of that if it fits into what I'm doing, right? Like, like the emoji thing is what I like, right? Like with the marathon where they took the marathon emoji or the racing flag and that's their logo, right?
Hmm.
So it's like every time you see it, every time I see it, I think of the marathon clothing, right? And I
Yeah.
remember I was doing an event in the Bay Area called Tech Trap House, and we basically used the haunted house emoji as our effectively as a way to market us, right? Like we would send it out, like I would write posts and I would put the haunted house there, and people knew what it was. Like you see it enough, people are like, oh, okay, they attach it to one, right? So cool, cool. Yeah, man. I think we touched on a lot. I didn't even really use any of the questions that we had. That's what's up.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Conversation was definitely flowing.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. Was there anything else you wanna touch on?
No, that pretty much covers everything. Again, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Folks can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn if they want to stay in touch. But yeah, this was definitely a great conversation. Definitely grateful to be here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for correcting me on how to say your name. You was like, hold on, we gonna do this again. So Wadnes Castelly, right?
Yep.
Product marketing strategist with us. Thanks for taking the time. I'm Corey Stay Trapping with Trap Talks, where we discuss the intersection of culture and tech. Come back to see us. Cool.
Peace.